Okay, we've got a little kid here. We've basically we've got a bunch of kids who would like to do a video before I go. So, so are you ready, Ibrahim? You have to point at whoever's talking, and we've got Daniel. Keep it really close to his mouth. Go for it. And you ask Uncle, who's been very kind, he's a Christian, to do a very simple video with these guys who are trying to do a video on Speaker's Corner. Go for it, Daniel.
I just wanted to go through like 3 evidences that show that Jesus didn't die on the cross.
Evidences from where? From the Bible?
Yeah, from the Bible.
Okay, we'll go through them then.
So from Matthew 12:39 to 40, it says, "But he answered and said unto them, An evil and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and there shall be no sign given to it, but the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth." This is saying that Jonah is saying. So my questions are: was Jonah dead in the belly of the whale?
I see the point you're making. You're saying that you believe that Jesus physically didn't die, and that after 3 days he recovered somehow from the tomb. Are you believing he recovered from the tomb they put him in? Is this what you're saying?
Yes, I think so. Yes.
Yes. The interpretation in Christianity is that refers to the going into the spiritual realm. The heart of the earth is considered a low realm of. But more fundamental was what I was explaining to this gentleman here, is that the confusion over the death and resurrection of Jesus was pointed out 150 years after Jesus' death by the famous theologian Origen. And he said the way it is worded, there is complete confusion as to which is Barabbas and which is Jesus, because Jesus called himself the Son of the Father.
Can I, just because he's probably going to get tired on his feet, we're just going to do a short version. So you suggested one idea, and the uncle here suggested that it depends how you interpret it. Okay.
Yes. So we have to look at it as a whole, the Bible, and this confusion was predicted by Origen. He says unless we sort out how we are encoding the Christianity, there's going to be confusion about whether Jesus died or not, or who died, Barabbas or Jesus.
Can you just ask
so
the last?
Aware of this, and you can go and study this yourself.
Yeah.
I was quite amazed when I first came across this. It's not widely discussed in Christianity, but it's extremely important in the early development of Christianity. Sure. And so those texts would have spread throughout.
I know you're giving an in-depth answer, but can you just ask the last bit? Can you see this bit? Can you read that?
I was gonna say, because they're like in the same sentence. I was gonna say that is it like the most accurate way to follow the prophecy is to say that Jesus survived death like Jonah, because he survived the whale.
So just I'm not sure if it's clarified, but he's saying if we were following the prophecy as accurately as possible, trying to compare like with like, is it? You might not agree with it, but do you not see that it's fair to say that it would mean that Jesus didn't die since Jonah didn't die?
If that was the case, you have to compare it with the other evidences in the Bible, whether there was whether those 3 days.
Just independently. I know it's not fair, but independently, would you say it's not a bad argument? Let's just say, at least.
Well, you might, if you just read that one chapter, you might conclude that. Yes, if you just read that one chapter, you might conclude that you can take it literally. Yes, because everything is in context, isn't it? When you read and study anything, it has to be in context with what comes before. And the question is whether a literal interpretation of that is in context. You could, on the other hand, say 3 days, because Jesus also said a day is 1,000 years. So you could say that 3,000 years later, Christ will return. 3,000 years later. Okay, so you've had 2,000 years up to the millennium. And now, if the last days are shortened to 20 years, that means Christ already returned in 2010.
Oh, that's quite complicated.
So you can interpret things in so many ways that you're left with, especially when it involves maths, when you numbers, because a day can be 1,000 years. That's the point.
So I'm talking about if we just stick to the prophecy, you can see Jesus was in the tomb for 3 days. In the
Well, he rose on the third day, so maybe 2 days. In the
yeah,
seems like that.
something. But you can see the similarity.
say-
Yeah, I do see that.
Okay.
Yes, I do see that. But if he had been physically alive, so why did he seem to disappear then after that? We didn't hear any more about him.
I think that's a good question.
That
Which
would
are the
be
long?
question if it was literal. If you were going to
Yeah.
take, it's fair enough when you first read it
Yeah.
to say, well, could it be that he didn't die? I don't mind you coming to that conclusion when you first read one
So
chapter.
let's see if you got an answer. Uncle here is saying, I call people. You might be wondering why I'm calling him uncle, because we, as Muslims, and I think Christians as well, we always respect everybody. And since I'm talking to a younger person, I'm encouraging him to have that respect when they're talking. So we call everybody
There should
uncle.
be respect between men to understand each other. And
Okay.
you're bringing to me the points, and
So-
it's perfectly legitimate points you're
So
making.
I was gonna
So
say.
it's fair enough, yes.
So I was gonna say that it says here for Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights. You can't just say that it says 3 days and 3 nights, meaning we believe believe he was in the belly for 3 days. You can't just be in the belly for 3,000 years, or else he would have been dead by then. And the whole point of the miracle was that Jonah survived being inside the whale's belly. So
But very often what happens is this, that in the Bible, these formula courses are expanded on a much bigger level. So they symbolize something. So whether you interpret that to be literally Jesus coming back to life physically, or whether it represents him going into the dark, they call the realms of the earth, they were talking about the realms of like hell or very low realms. It's not distinguished. The early Christians, people in those days, did not distinguish between the physical and the spiritual world. That's the problem.
Okay,
So
so we
if
get the
you're-
idea. So,
so
it could be
if
like a
you're
metaphor.
Yes, so you could, because we didn't see him again after, well, the 40 days, Jesus was seen by his followers for 40 days, even coming into a locked room. So he can't have had a physical body if he got into a locked room. He got into a locked room. So,
And then the next one.
so
Okay,
but very often when these things are in the Bible, not only God is using something to show something greater. So I used mathematics in the Bible to predict the future. I predicted 9/11 to the day using Bible
I'm going to be
mathematics.
really rude. I'm just going to get into the next one. We'll try to do it really quickly. Go for it. Sorry, go on.
my
Because
second.
there's a little boy here who's holding the
Go on.
mic. He's gonna get tired, isn't he?
8 years old.
You're 8 years old. Yes,
Yeah.
go on.
My second point was from Mark 15:44. It says Pilate was
Surprised.
surprised to hear that he was already dead. Was Pontius Pilate an expert in crucifixion and whipping like Jesus was?
I'm not sure if you understood that.
Oh yes, I know. He was very. That Jesus died with them out. Normally, the Romans would want to get home from a crucifixion. They would, if the person being crucified was still alive, they would break their legs
Right.
and they would die very quickly.
Do you
then.
understand the point that he's trying to make?
yes.
He's trying to say, just to clarify,
Yes.
just in case there's confusion, he's saying that Pontius Pilate, who, if people don't know, he's basically you could call him the chief executioner, he was a governor, he orders who gets executed, he's very experienced in this, and he was surprised
Yes.
that Jesus had died already.
Yes.
Okay, and people might not understand why, because they think the cross is so brutal, but actually,
It's not just the cross; it's the beating that people have
Sure.
before going to the cross.
Yeah.
Because all the energy,
Yeah.
you're having to push yourself up when you're crucified to breathe.
yes,
And if you've been beaten, badly beaten,
yeah,
many times,
Yeah.
then it's going to be very hard for you to push yourself up to breathe.
Yeah.
And he was pierced through the
so
side.
just to put that all that in context,
Yes.
there are people who do this every year to themselves. They beat themselves with nails, and they put themselves on the cross, and they don't die. But the point is that the greatest expert in the Bible in this context was Pontius Pilate, and from his experience,
From his experience,
he thought, no way, how could he have died? And normally it does take a very long time to kill somebody on the cross. So based on that,
designed to be excruciating torture.
exactly. So
Designed not to kill people, but to be
Yes.
excruciating torture. You see.
what's your response to that?
Yes, I like the idea. I actually like the idea of his disciples, despite him being very close to death, nursing him back to life. I like that idea as an idea, because you should in a life of faith you should never give up. If you have your prophet with you, and he's about to die, you should do everything to bring him. I like the idea of the followers of Christ would do everything to bring him back to life. I like this idea. But whether it's true, I don't believe it's true. I believe that Christ.
So what
really
did you
did
think
die.
about Pontius Pilate's surprise? his expert surprise, or his expert opinion that Jesus didn't die, basically.
No, he didn't say he didn't die. He just
But
said
he was surprised.
Well, yes, I read that. I remember reading that. That's something that puzzles Christianity. That his misery was cut short. So in some ways, Christ was fortunate. His misery was cut short.
Okay. And finally, your last point about
There's some meaning
Nicodemus.
in that. I think in all these stories, there's a greater meaning in the historical process that can be understood later.
Okay.
Because everything is a formula course. So the course Christ has to go is the course that mankind has to go.
Okay.
So it's revealing something
And then
there.
last one, Nicodemus. Sorry, Uncle. I'm going to just.
My last point is in John 19:39. Nicodemus, also, who earlier had come to Jesus by night, came bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 75 pounds in weight. This is a lot. And in the Bible, his followers put medicine on Jesus' body, and this is what you do to nurse someone back to life.
That's right. That's what you would use. Or to bury. I think they use some of these incense, these chemicals to embalm somebody, don't they?
So, what were you going to say, Kanka?
Normally, Jews wouldn't do this. If a person had actually died, they would put a white cloth over them and then bury them, like Muslims would do. But they're putting medicine on the body, which is suggesting that they're trying to heal Jesus.
Yes, I like the idea. I like the idea that the Christians will do anything to heal Jesus. I find this incredible. This is what a life of faith is. When things look impossible, that's what the Christians were supposed to have, that faith. When the Roman centurion came to Jesus and asked about his ill servant, one of his soldiers or his servant was sick, and Jesus said, I will send one of my disciples. He said, you don't need to send your disciple. You have authority. You could just say it and it will be so. This kind of faith, I like this kind of faith that, or Joshua in the Bible, the faith of running into the water, rushing, not holding a stick up, but pushing his way into the water to get across the Jordan.
Okay. And
I like this. I like this type of story very much.
Okay. And do you want to ask the last? I think it's not much point.
Yeah, I was
That's a good point. You've raised three very good points, I would say, and it's well worth thinking about those points because you can have assumptions about things, but it's very good to question, understand the deeper meaning of something. I find it's very fruitful when someone raises issues like this, and they would come, if you read the Bible, to think about these things, what they represent symbolically about the providential course of history. Really good questions. They represent different, because I use this to study history and predict the future. I try to understand these symbolic events and their ramifications on the whole pattern. You'll have a pattern, like we live a day. In one day, you have like the winter is the morning.
I'm going to cut you off, sorry, because I know you start talking about your expertise. Anyway, good job.
How I use the Bible, you see.
And let's pick this guy up so he's on camera. You want to be on camera properly? Oh, good job. He did a good job with the microphone. And there's his dad here. Don't press it. There's his dad. All right. Thank you very much.